Welcome back to our last session of day one, Humanizing the digital customer experience and why it is important now. Again, we have Mark Benthin, the CEO and founder from eHealth. Mark, I want to ask you, how are you? Because I asked previously. But we have Daniele from Chiesi from Italy. So, Daniele, how are you doing? Everything fine?
I'm great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dario.
Great to hear. Unfortunately, Romika couldn't join, but I suppose that Youssef will still make it for today's conversation. However, in the meantime, we will start with our great discussion, which is in front of us. And my first question to all of you would be B2B, B2C, H2H, why a human approach in a digital ecosystem really matters? And maybe we can start with you, Daniel.
Yes. So at the end of the day, we are all humans, no? After all. So we live experiences, we build we live perceptions, we build emotions, and we build, at the end of the day, we build judgments about the brands with which we interact. And those judgments have an impact because as customers, we can decide to buy or not from a brand. And in the life science industry, a physician can decide to prescribe or not, and also based on the values of the companies. So humans want brands they can relate to, that are able to move emotions, let's say. So we can, being human-centered and build increased satisfaction of our customers. And at the end of the day, we will increase also customer excellence. Consumer is also sales at the end of the day. So as a pharma company, I think we should focus on building positive memories in our customers. And the key aspect on that, it's how we are able to build empathy. And empathy, it's not a matter of a channel, because many might think that empathy is just something that we can experience in the physical channels. Instead, we also can experience empathy through digital channels. We can experience empathy, for example, by not overwhelming our customers in terms of, for example, too many unnecessary emails, or tailoring communication to their specific needs, for example. And in Chiesi, we also try to make a step forward in this aspect, keeping the human at the center. And we decided to invest to being certified as a benefit corporation. So for us, this means, for example, improving patient lives, but not only that, being responsible for local communities, being responsible for the sustainability of our planet, or also create shared value for our local communities. So this is our aim as a company. And so let's say that the human is at the center of everything we do, especially in the life science industry, from keeping the patients to the center of everything we do, and also how engaging the customers in an effective way. And finally, I think also keeping the objective as a company to have a positive impact in the local communities and on the environment.
Thank you, Daniele. Mark?
Yeah, you mentioned some key words, and if we look at the human approach to the digital ecosystem, it's the entire ecosystem. And a lot of the human-to-human interaction is all about conversation. And you want to be able to have that conversation occur across any medium or mechanism, whether it's the telephone or the webinar or the email. If it is a one-on-one kind of conversation, then you want to have continuity so that even as you break over time, that conversation can continue so that you can build on those shared memories that that Daniele mentioned. And he touched on a key word of emotional connection. And there's certainly a number of studies that have proven that for any buyer activity of any kind, more than 50%, I think the most recent one has a number north of 70 or 80% of a individual's buying signals are really based on those emotional factors. So important to get the information correct and validated. That's absolutely critical. But beyond that, it's really about that connection. So how do you create that connection, maintain that connection, and then grow and evolve it over time in a way that is respectful of the person, that is convenient to the organization and to all the individuals involved, that is fast and easy and light. It's that kind of movement that is important. And I think many interactions, we're now just getting to the point where digital channels really can truly embrace the entirety of what they could do because of improvements in bandwidth, improvements in personal acceptance of digital mediums, video, personalization, and the like. We see the next 10 years doesn't need to be a metaverse, but over the next 10 years, the capabilities are such that the kinds of conversations that should be able to be held via digital channels will be those that generate the most emotional connections for all of the customers and different customer types going forward.
Thanks a lot, Mark. Daniele mentioned one very interesting aspect, which is creating moments to delight, right? So how actually to implement a proper human experience within the current omnichannel strategy and across different touch points, so that you create moments and that you really live this H2H segment. Mark, maybe we can start with you.
Well, I think there's a number of things that we do today that we take for granted within the omnichannel environment. We spend a lot of time on omnichannel thinking about next best action, which is absolutely critical. But at the same time, within some of the channels themselves, they could be vastly improved with small changes. And that can generate more interaction, can generate more value, more activity. And we see, I mean, our focus over the last year or two has been really, truly based on personalized video, lifelike avatars, and that kind of application to the omnichannel experience to try and make those things as easy to do as writing a standard email. And I think there are elements within that environment where we can improve individual channels that certainly make sure that the omnichannel experience becomes a human-based omnichannel experience, whether with representatives, KOLs, or whoever are the different parties that are communicating. And one thought that I think is behind this notion of conversation is when we think of personalization, we tend to think of personalizing to an end recipient. But a lot of times we need to think of the other side of it, which is, where is that message coming from? Is it from a KOL? Is it from a representative who is known, from an MSL? So, and we can use that information in order to make that personal touch within that experience even richer than we do today. So I think there's a number of things that we can do already. It already fits the omnichannel environment, but we can do even more over, piecemeal over the next while not, requiring a whole sea change of organizational realignment.
Thanks a lot, Mark. Youssef, really great that you could make it. So I would like you to ask the very same question, which is how to implement this proper human experience within the omnichannel ecosystem, as it's popular called nowadays.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everybody. And sorry for being late. Do you hear me okay, everybody?
Yeah.
Thumbs up. Yeah, excellent. So I think for the digital experience, providing what I call omnichannel consumer-centric experiences, it goes through content, definitely. And there are two components to that. There is the traditional way of managing content. There is the second one, which is having a strategy of modular content. And from what I understand in the industry, is very hard to get to a point where strategies align with the business goals when it comes to modular content, and part of it is due to the challenges in bringing all that data together. I think every company works with a lot of agencies and have different investments, internal and external data, and bringing all that together, it's definitely a challenge. So for me, in order to achieve that level of consumer or customer centric omnichannel customer centric experience, it's very important to double down on bringing that modularity, and that's a good start for I think what Mark was talking about around personalization and all these notions and building blocks for the digital experience.
Thanks a lot, Youssef. But let's start with the basics or continue with the basics, which is how would you actually define or make the definition about proper customer experience within the omnichannel environment. So what does it mean? Because it's very similar to quality. When you ask someone for quality, for you, Youssef, maybe one product is having a great quality, while for myself it could be the worst product ever, right? So how actually can you define real customer experience, and what does it mean to the key opinion leaders, to the HCP, whoever the stakeholder is? Maybe we can
Absolutely.
continue. Maybe we can stay with you, Youssef, because I know that Gene is doing a lot in that particular segment.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can definitely take a stab at this question as well. For me, the way I define it and the way we are experiencing it is definitely through what we call the integrated customer experience. I think it's very important to create customer journeys. And this is, by the way, valid whatever the industry, right? So I came from retail, and definitely a good definition of customer journeys and the what we call the touch points are very important. In order to achieve that experience, it's very important to have everybody in the organization, top down, bottom up, grounded in the definition of what is an integrated experience. I think the way define that is definitely through customer journey and customer 360 view of what the customer wants. Would it be the way we engage with the HCP, the way we manage our relationship with all the stakeholders and influencers in the industry? Would it be the way we provide information through MSLs and talk about the science of the products? But the entry point is really putting the patients in the center, because it's customer, but the customer number one, and then everyone else are stakeholders. Like defining the patients and customer journeys is very, very important, and this is definitely how I define the customer experience.
Thanks a lot, Mark.
Well, I think there's I agree with the approach that Youssef has mentioned. I think there's a lot of the definition of those journeys where we need to refresh them more often than we do. We've been engaged with clients where some of the journeys are from years ago. The personas were identified years ago, and the content is being developed according to a methodology that's also from years ago. And it sort of links back to the other comment I made earlier. That base journey may be fine, but there are nuances to it that perhaps by taking a slightly different approach for certain elements, step by step, and measuring the results, that you can make a vast improvement in the overall experience and the customer experience, because the customers have also changed. They've changed their expectations. They didn't used to have digital expectations. Now everybody does. And so we need to be able to evolve, that approach more rapidly than perhaps we might have done so in the past. It doesn't mean it's a wholesale change, but there is an evolution to it. And so we have to kind of bring that to bear and consider, okay, what are we going to plan in 2023 that we will test out, that will do things differently, that will affect certain journeys. But in 2024, we have full expectation that we can bring the best results of that to scale, right? And do it in lockstep. So each time we're able to improve the experience, improve the journey, but we're doing so knowingly, also so that the rest of the organization can buy into it. And if it's the success that's expected on the pilot stage, then you can scale it up. And if there's other learnings that point towards a different approach, you can capture that and also improve that too. So it does become something that feels like it is a release of a journey type mechanism, right? Where we're improving our personalization and the overall experience over time. It may be imperceptible to many of the customers, but at the end of the day, that is going to be the result that sits on the paper and in the numbers. And then we can say after 5 years, okay, we embarked on a journey. That journey actually was the improvement of all of our experiences. And at the end result, we have a better alignment with our customers.
Thank you very much, Mark. And Daniele.
Yes, I would like to build on Mark's answer and saying that for me, we should also reinforce the capability to collect data about personas, which is not only the traditional segmentation that we used to do in pharma industry. So it's also about the goals, the obstacles, the ambitions that this customer have, the interests, the future hopes, all those things that we should start to collect and building, let's say, an emotional knowledge about the customers that we have. This is very important. It's something we're not used to do in the pharma industry. And afterwards, we can obviously identify what are the preferred channel of those customers, what are the needs they have. We can understand what are the moments of truth that are crucial where to act. And an important thing about the action part, which is another, let's say, bias that I tend to see in our industry, is that we mostly think about action in terms of communication. It's always about making a campaign or making a communication. I think that customer experience, it's a lot more. It's also re-engineering a process if we need to, if we are too slow, or it's about, I don't know, changing the organization if the customer don't understand us. So, I mean, with customer experience, we might have a perspective that it's far broader than just communication. That includes communication, but not only that one.
Mhm.
And yeah. Yeah, and one last thing I would say, it's very important to have the involvement of the overall organization. I think Youssef was saying something about that. I mean, we should engage all in terms of customer experience. This means for me in the pharma industry to involve the field force. These are, I mean, the biggest strength we have in terms of people. And if we involve them in terms of our customer experience process, which means also, I mean, collecting one-to-one feedbacks, closing the loop at the level of single customer, even at the level of between the customer-facing role at the physician, that I think it's the highest ambition we can achieve in terms of customer experience.
Certainly. You mentioned the emotional component, Daniela, which leads me to the next question. And this is how to implement this particular human approach into our teams. And I suggest maybe we can continue with you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think we should start from values. Let's say agree on the values that we share in terms of teams, in terms of brands, in terms of company, and I mean, working on that, we can then develop all the actions, improvements that we can deliver towards our customers. I have the honor to lead a team that is called Customer Experience Committee in Chiesi that has representatives that are managers from each function and each business unit. And this table has the objective to tackle the most multifunctional initiatives that our customers ask from feedback. And the first thing that we did in the table was working on the values, agreeing on the values manifest, let's say. But we can do also a lot more. For example, we should start from recruiting empathetic people, people that are passionate about the life science industry. We should make sure that our employees are aware of the expectation of the company in terms of building memorable experiences for our customers. To encourage our staff to have strong attention towards the customers to improve their day, let's say, even delivering small acts of kindness towards the customers, to share positive experience inside the company between colleagues, but also sharing failures because we can learn from that. We can teach how to create fantastic experiences, sharing inside the company, also giving the instruments, obviously, to our field force to create those experiences. And finally, I would say it's very important to reward the staff that is able to create those amazing experiences, to celebrate also some important customer stories, I would say. So these are key moments of truth, let's say, inside the company to where we can make the difference in terms of, how to implement this approach for our teams.
Very interesting points, I really have to say. I mean, very simple, but not complicated, but sometimes the answer always lies in such segments, right? Youssef? Youssef, you're muted. You're muted.
Yeah.
Okay, now we can hear you.
You hear me okay now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was saying I liked the definition of the personas Daniel was touching upon, because I think when it comes to that inside out strategy to see who are we dealing with, which segment of the health population and patients, and which kind of customers. I think that segmentation in the pharma industry, it has been very legacy based on volume only, compared to what retail is doing, very, very granular, and creating personas of shoppers and based on internal and external data. So that multi-dimensional way of creating personas and touch upon their need down to the what Daniel called emotions. It's very, very important. So that's one, and I think it's very, very important in that customer experience. And by customer, by the way, interchangeably, I also mean patients, just to make sure that our audience also follows. Very important to have that personas strategy to avoid one size fits all when it comes to the experience. What works for you doesn't work for me necessarily. Your touch points you need in that journey are not necessarily the same as mine, and that goes through all the digital channels we can use. So that's number one, and I think number two for me, how to build this human aspects of the experience. It's definitely through change management when it comes to people experience as well, because we shouldn't ignore that. I think Daniel again mentioned the field force, which is very, very important, and in a lot of cases this is where the spend is bigger in the industry. I guess it's very important to empower our people also with the right digital experiences in order for them to achieve a perfect customer experience, because they are facing the customers, would it be through voice of customer when they talk to patients, or would it be through engagement when they engage with customers with HCPs and what have you. So for me, it's very important to align adoption of the tools and the tool sets, double down on education and change management, because at the end of the day, like I said, customer experience or patients' journeys are definitely led and possible with the people who are in our companies and organizations.
Thank you, Youssef. And Mark, very same question.
I think building upon, once the values are established, and building upon what Daniele and Youssef have been mentioning, a simple path forward is also to look at the different spheres of influence and start with the most smallest number that may have the largest influence. So, for example, let's say the key opinion leader type of focus. So there may be some value in terms of what can be humanized in that approach in the digital channels to improve that overall experience and access to that kind of content. Then move to something that's a little bit more people and a slightly different approach. It may not be a same technological approach, but again, a little bit wider. So it might be the MSL advisors that where there's certain cases that could be built out. And then, stepwise move towards more of a traditional field involvement where things have been vetted, approaches and use cases are proven and can be shown. And also there's an ability to reuse materials that have already been generated that their physicians would be interested in viewing and participating. So you end up having this amplification or radiation of different customer experiences stepwise, as opposed to trying to boil an ocean all up front and have everybody make a massive sea change. And I think this approach allows us to take advantage of all those other precepts that are already here from an omni-channel environment, modular content types approaches, some of the improvements in the medical digital type of channels, and then as it moves forward, just dealing with a wider internal team bit by bit, which obviously requires then additional alignment and steps. But having that notion from the get-go that that's the plan, and it has certain execution steps tied to it, but it's all within the auspices of this improvement in customer experience, which itself is moving over the next several years. That's a good way to appreciate that in 5 years from now, we'll be at a much better place than where we are maybe today.
Yeah. With that said, I would like to thank you, gentlemen. Mark, Youssef, Daniele, was a great discussion. Maybe the best one of today. Very simple, but at the end of the day, I really learned a lot, same as I believe the entire audience. So thanks again for joining. Looking to the next one, and have a nice rest of the day.
You too.
Thank you so
Bye.
much. Nice to meet you, everybody. Bye. Bye.